If someone uses your past against you, say this. Have you ever been in a conversation where someone suddenly brings up something you did years ago just to win an argument? Maybe it was a mistake you made, a decision you regret, or even just a phase you went through that you've completely moved past. But there they are, weaponizing your history against you like it happened yesterday. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone, and more importantly, you're about to learn exactly how to handle these situations with confidence and grace. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most emotionally manipulative tactics people use in relationships, friendships, and even workplace dynamics. We're talking about when someone uses your past against you. By the end of this video, you'll have a complete toolkit for recognizing this behavior, understanding why people do it, and most importantly, how to respond in a way that protects your peace and maintains your dignity. Let's start by understanding exactly what we're dealing with here. When someone uses your past against you, they're essentially taking something you've shared in confidence or something they know about your history and turning it into ammunition during a conflict. This isn't about legitimate concerns or patterns of behavior that genuinely need to be addressed. This is about manipulation, control, and often revenge. Picture this scenario. You're having a disagreement with your partner about household responsibilities. Instead of focusing on the actual issue at hand, they suddenly say something like, "Well, this is just like when you quit that job without notice 3 years ago. You never think things through." Suddenly, the conversation isn't about dishes or laundry anymore. It's about your entire character, your past decisions, and your worth as a person. This tactic is particularly devastating because it attacks your sense of growth and progress. As human beings, we're constantly evolving, learning from our mistakes, and becoming better versions of ourselves. When someone drags up your past to use against you, they're essentially saying that growth doesn't matter, that you're forever defined by your worst moments, and that redemption isn't possible. If that perspective resonates with you, take a moment to like this video. It helps this message reach people who need it, and then we'll get into exactly how to respond when this happens. The psychological impact of this behavior cannot be overstated. It creates what psychologists call learned helplessness, where you start to believe that no matter how much you change or improve, you'll always be judged by your past mistakes. This can lead to decreased self-esteem, increased anxiety about sharing personal information, and a general sense that you're walking on eggshells in your relationships. Now, let's talk about why people engage in this toxic behavior. Understanding the motivation doesn't excuse it, but it does help you respond more effectively. The most common reason is deflection. When someone knows they're wrong or losing an argument, bringing up your past mistakes is a way to shift focus away from their own behavior or the current issue. It's like throwing a smoke bomb in the middle of a conversation. Another major motivation is control. Some people use your past against you as a way to maintain power in the relationship. They're essentially holding your mistakes hostage, creating a dynamic where you feel like you owe them something or need to constantly prove your worth. This is particularly common in relationships where one person has narcissistic tendencies or struggles with their own insecurities. Sometimes, people use your past against you out of genuine hurt or unresolved feelings. Maybe they never fully processed something that happened, and it comes out during times of stress or conflict. While this is more understandable, it's still not acceptable behavior, and it still needs to be addressed. There's also the factor of projection. People who frequently bring up others' past mistakes often have their own shame and guilt about their history. By focusing on your failures, they don't have to examine their own. It's a defensive mechanism that protects their ego while damaging your emotional well-being. So how do you actually respond when someone throws your past in your face? The first and most important step is to stay calm. This is incredibly difficult because this type of attack feels so personal and unfair, but reacting emotionally is exactly what they're hoping for. Take a deep breath, pause for a moment, and remind yourself that their behavior says more about them than it does about you. One of the most powerful responses you can give is to acknowledge the past without shame while redirecting to the present. You might say something like, "Yes, I made that mistake 3 years ago, and I learned from it. Right now, we're talking about a completely different issue, and I'd like to stay focused on that." This approach shows that you're not ashamed of your growth journey while refusing to let them derail the conversation. If you want this broken down into a one-page summary with clear response scripts and boundary setting steps, text boundaries to 325-378-6868 or check the description. It's designed to help you handle these moments calmly instead of freezing or reacting emotionally. Sometimes you need to be more direct about calling out the the behavior itself. You can say, I notice that whenever we have a disagreement, you bring up things from my past. That's not fair to either of us, and it's not helping us resolve the current issue. Can we agree to focus on what's happening now? This puts the spotlight on their manipulative tactic rather than your past behavior. If someone consistently uses your past against you, it might be time for a more serious conversation about boundaries. You could say, I've noticed a pattern where my past mistakes get brought up during our disagreements. I want you to know that I'm not willing to have conversations that way anymore. If you have unresolved feelings about something from the past, let's address that separately, but I won't accept having it used against me in future conflicts. Here's something crucial to understand. You are not required to carry the burden of your past mistakes forever. Yes, if you've hurt someone, you should make amends and work to rebuild trust, but that doesn't mean those mistakes become permanent weapons for others to use against you. Healthy relationships involve forgiveness, growth, and the ability to move forward together. It's also important to evaluate the relationship itself. When this behavior is persistent, ask yourself, is this person generally supportive of your growth and change? Do they celebrate your progress and improvement? Or do they seem invested in keeping you stuck in old patterns and past mistakes? Someone who truly cares about you will want to see you grow and succeed, not constantly remind you of times when you fell short. Let's talk about some red flags that indicate this behavior is more than just occasional poor judgment. If someone brings up your past mistakes immediately during any disagreement, that's a red flag. If they use your vulnerabilities and things you've shared in confidence as weapons, that's manipulation. If they seem to keep a mental scorecard of your failures to use against you later, that's emotional abuse. Pay attention to whether they ever bring up positive things from your past or only the negative. Healthy people in healthy relationships remember both your successes and your failures. They celebrate how far you've come and support your continued growth. Someone who only seems to remember your worst moments is showing you something important about their intentions. Another crucial aspect of dealing with this situation is protecting your own mental health. When someone consistently uses your past against you, it can start to affect how you see yourself. You might begin to believe that you really are defined by your worst moments, or that you don't deserve to move forward from past mistakes. This is where self-compassion becomes essential. Remember that everyone has a past filled with both good and bad decisions. The fact that you can acknowledge your mistakes and learn from them is actually a strength, not a weakness. Growth requires honesty about where you've been, but it doesn't require you to stay there forever. You have every right to evolve, change, and become a better version of yourself without having someone constantly drag you back to who you used to be. Sometimes setting boundaries means limiting what personal information you share with people who have proven they can't handle it responsibly. This isn't about becoming secretive or closed off, but about being strategic about who gets access to your vulnerabilities. Trust should be earned, and if someone has shown they'll use your openness against you, they haven't earned the right to your complete transparency. If you're dealing with this behavior in a romantic relationship, couples therapy might be beneficial. A trained professional can help both parties understand why this pattern exists and develop healthier communication strategies. However, this only works if both people are committed to change. If your partner refuses to acknowledge the problem or work on it, you may need to consider whether this relationship is healthy for you. In friendships, you have more flexibility to create distance or end relationships that consistently involve this type of emotional manipulation. True friends support your growth and don't hold your past mistakes over your head indefinitely. They might call you out when you're making poor decisions, but they do it from a place of love and support, not manipulation and control. Workplace situations require a more careful approach, since you can't always choose to limit contact with difficult colleagues. Document instances where someone brings up irrelevant past issues during professional discussions. Focus on keeping conversations work-related and factual. If the behavior persists and affects your job performance or mental health, consider speaking with human resources or a supervisor. Let's address something that might be going through your mind right now. You might be wondering, but what if I really did something terrible? What if they have a right to bring it up? Here's the thing. Even if you made a serious mistake, constantly having it thrown in your face isn't productive for anyone involved. If someone truly can't move past something you did, they need to either work through those feelings in a constructive way or honestly evaluate whether they want to continue the relationship. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, but it does mean choosing not to weaponize past hurts. If someone says they've forgiven you but continues to bring up your mistakes during every conflict, they haven't actually forgiven you. They've just found a way to maintain power and control in the relationship. One strategy that can be particularly effective is the broken record technique. When someone brings up your past, you simply keep redirecting back to the present issue. That's not what we're discussing right now. I'd like to focus on the current situation. We're talking about today's issue, not something from from years ago. Keep repeating variations of this message without getting drawn into defending your past actions. It's also worth noting that people who frequently use others' pasts against them often have poor conflict resolution skills in general. They might not know how to address current issues directly, so they resort to bringing up old ammunition. While this explains the behavior, it doesn't excuse it, and it definitely doesn't mean you have to tolerate it. Here's a powerful mindset shift that can help you deal with these situations. When someone uses your past against you, they're actually revealing their own character, not defining yours. A person of good character focuses on present issues and works towards solutions. Someone who constantly digs up old grievances to use as weapons is showing you that they're not interested in healthy resolution or genuine connection. If you've been on the receiving end of this behavior for a long time, you might have developed some unhealthy patterns yourself. Maybe you've become overly defensive about your past, or perhaps you've started hiding parts of yourself to avoid giving anyone ammunition. Recognizing these defensive mechanisms is important for your own healing and growth. Working with a therapist or counselor can be incredibly helpful in processing the impact of having your past used against you. They can help you rebuild your self-worth, develop stronger boundaries, and learn to share your authentic self with people who deserve your trust. Remember, the goal isn't to become invulnerable, but to become discerning about who gets access to your vulnerabilities. As we wrap up today's discussion, I want you to remember this: your past does not define your future. You are not permanently branded by your mistakes, and you don't owe anyone the right to hold those mistakes over your head indefinitely. You have the power to set boundaries, demand respect, and surround yourself with people who support your growth rather than sabotage it. The next time someone tries to use your past against you, you'll be prepared. You'll stay calm, redirect the conversation, and refuse to be manipulated by someone else's inability to handle conflict maturely. You'll remember that their behavior reflects their character, not yours, and you'll protect your peace accordingly. Remember, you deserve relationships where your growth is celebrated, not where your past is weaponized against you. Stand firm in that truth, and don't let anyone convince you otherwise. If this way of thinking resonates with you, subscribe. This channel is for those who choose discipline over reaction, presence over noise, and mastery over impulse. Walk quietly, build strength. I'll see you in the next lesson.